whatever.
All right, cool. Well, welcome everyone to our second official Neo Tokyo News Twitter space. Today we're going to do a nice little review of what's new in the Neo Tokyo News and then get into our feature subject for the evening with some of our special guests. The subject we're going to be looking at tonight is why do gamers hate NFTs? This is something that has been looked at and discussed quite a bit recently, and it's been an ongoing barrier to overcome as the crypto Web3 NFT gaming scene strives to go more mainstream. There is definitely some resistance, and so we got some good people with some experience on the topic that are going to give some insights into why they think this is and what can be done over these next months and years to get to a more integrated mainstream place for the industry. Those speakers include KyleWillson, Xenofan, Neil, and Bleedkale, all from Neo Tokyo. My co-host and friend Atomic Sushi will be giving them a little introduction and getting the conversation started. But first, I'm just going to review Neo Tokyo News a bit. If people have been following the Citizen News on this public website now for the last month and a half, 5 days a week, we drop articles that cover things that are going on related to Neo Tokyo, but also to the whole crypto gaming world. I noticed today that another prominent NFT project started a similar initiative. I wonder where they got that idea.
The news has people biting your style now. You know, you've made it.
I know. Well, I mean, once there's copiers, I guess that's a sign that you're making progress. But it's bound to happen. And the news, I would say, this week was very much dominated by Citizen Capital, the investment arm of Neo Tokyo that has become the official investment arm in these recent weeks. They've done some major pivots to satisfy the desires of the leadership of Neo Tokyo to more fully integrate into the Bytes ecosystem and become a more exclusive feature of the Neo Tokyo holders. You know, those who hold either S1s or S2s can have access to these top tier investments brought up from the Citizen Capital team. We also have the help of our founders, Elio and Alex Becker, to firm up and acquire these great deals of some of the top projects coming out in Web3 gaming. The first investment that we have is Supra Oracles, which is underway already. We had to do a pre-mint this week, and I'm currently working with some on the Citizen Capital team to have a more detailed article, which will come out tomorrow, about the staking of bytes and how that's going to work and how it's going to work to do the raffles to be able to participate in the investment. So that should come out tomorrow in tomorrow's news, so look out for that. We've had a few different articles on the whole project this week, which definitely drew a lot of attention and interest from citizens and beyond, I think. I think people are seeing that it's not too easy to get into these seed rounds, especially if you live in certain areas of the planet where there are regulations hindering that freedom. So being a Neo Tokyo citizen, one can have access to that through Citizen Capital and also some other projects associated with Neo Tokyo, Spectre, and VeVe. Citizen Capital is the one that's more officially linked and aligned. But it is a separate legal entity, just to be clear. It's not totally the same thing as Neo Tokyo. It's just something that we have access to. So check out those articles and be sure to check out the one coming out tomorrow to be up to date and up to speed as what's happening there so you can be involved. Today we had Block Editor do another one in her series of Outer Citizen Spotlights. She's covering Captain Cavalier, who did a lot of acting work, it looks like, and has a very interesting project that he's outlined in that feature. Phoenix Down wrote up an article about Disney's focus on Web3. They have released information about the 6 participants of their 2022 Disney Accelerator. So you can check that out. Damon Needs to Create is always dropping very interesting articles to keep the community on track. He's trying to make the articles a little bit more accessible to those who aren't just in Neo Tokyo, those who are trying to understand and develop decentralized communities. So those are always a good read. This time he's talking about joining teams and how important that is. Of course, we had the article announcing this event. We had updates on our Collider Craftworks Cypher giveaway. We're doing a special, Neo Tokyo is doing a special collab and partnership with Collider Craftworks. So once these Cypher NFTs sell out that have been set up for Neo Tokyo, they're going to be making some assets in their Mosh Pit game for Neo Tokyo, which is going to be super cool to be able to play in a more Neo Tokyo themed arena with some Neo Tokyo assets. Those are the main stories, I would say, from this week. We've had some lore coming out as well that was somewhat associated with this SitCap, SitCap coming into being here, and that's always fun. We definitely have some big things coming on the way as we try and roll out this Bytes 2.0 and some other features that have not been announced just yet. Similar to what Neil said earlier, there's some hot things that are on the way. Do keep up with everything that's going on through Neo Tokyo News. We appreciate it when you give likes and retweets and whatnot. We also have a weekly recap that we're doing with Outer Citizen Shamsi, which is on Spotify and YouTube every week. So check that out as well and subscribe to that YouTube channel. There's my recap for now, and I'm going to pass it on to Atomic Sushi. And you can get this conversation started and introduce our special guests.
Cool. How's it going, everybody? I am Atomic Sushi, and I don't have very strong opinions on why gamers aren't that into the crypto space and crypto gaming. I don't really understand it, to be honest. I think it's an amazing opportunity for both parties. So I'm going to lean on you guys a little bit here and just let your expertise speak for me. So I wanted to get started with Bleed Kale. Bleed Kale, correct me if any of this is wrong, but you are associated with Uptick, a marketing agency for games. My understanding is you started more in Web 2 and have been transitioning, your efforts to be involved more in the Web 3 space. So tell us a little bit about that, and then tell us how you're received by the older community as you're transitioning into Web 3.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks, Atomic, and great to be here with everyone tonight. I come from an interesting perspective. I am the co-founder, as you said, of Uptick, a games marketing company. Also, a smaller co-founder of a project that we've been working on for a while, just announced last week, called Scrapyard, which is a game where we're trying to address a lot of these same issues that are causing people to really hate NFTs and trying to address some of these underlying problems. So kind of coming at this from two different angles. It's the first thing is like it's crazy. Like this is a religious war. I don't know how we all find ourselves in the middle of a religious war. Like the passions are so strong on both sides, and it's hard to find like a proper analogy elsewhere in gaming. Like when cloud computing was coming to pass, there weren't people like with just these religious opinions about it. And I think it kind of has some parallels to um, the political divides in a lot of countries where, I've talked to other people in Neo Tokyo and Web3 communities where they're like, I don't see it. Everyone I talk to seems to love Web3 gaming and I don't see it. But then if you read mainstream gaming press, like Kotaku is the one I always reference, it's nothing but pure unadulterated hatred. And you have to kind of think about the information sources that people are daily consuming. And if all your peers and all of the sources you read have this one take and one stance, like that kind of becomes your default stance. And so that's kind of what I'm seeing when I say like a religious war of like we have these two camps where each is just consuming information in that bubble and really digging their heels in. So I hope that tonight we get a chance to both unpack like kind of get to the truth, like because there are a lot of the arguments against NFTs and Web3 gaming are really bad faith arguments that can easily be knocked down. But then there are some really sincere good points that we need to think about as a community, and hopefully tonight we can unpack kind of both sides of that. So sorry for the long rant to start, but it's kind of where I'm coming from here.
No worries. Thanks for that. Okay. Kyle, let's go with you next. I understand you just recently finished up some work you were doing with Alluvium. Have you had any experience with that regarding this? Is there anybody that's really hating on Alluvium right now because they're a Web3 company?
Yeah, I'm sure there is out there, but Illuvium hasn't officially launched yet, so we've been kind of spared that type of publicity, if you will. But we have talked about it a lot, and it's something internally that the co-founders are aware of, and it's something that we actively work towards. Basically, marketing towards the traditional gaming audience. So, kind of like taking away some of the crypto jargon we hear so much about all the time and trying to make it more simple and streamline the process, not only like in the communication we use, but on the platform and the website itself. So there is definitely a tall order. It's not perfect right now in terms of, how gamers look at, Web3 gaming, but I do have a lot of opinions on it. It's something we've talked about on our Twitter spaces at Alluvium as well. So yeah, I'm willing to, or I'm, excited to get into this topic and definitely have some opinions there for sure.
Okay. Is there anything else you wanted to tell us about you before we move on?
Oh yeah, so I'm the influencer media manager for Alluvium. Just wrapped up work there, and obviously if you haven't heard of Alluvium, we just sold out like 72 million worth of land in a land sale just recently. So basically down our pipeline, we have lots of different products coming out soon, including Alluvatars, which is the PFP, of the Alluvium ecosystem, which will have its own gamification built in. So stay tuned for that. A little bit of alpha there. And then the alpha land game is also coming soon as well. So those two things are pretty immediate. They just opened up beta to another like 5K beta testers to total up to, I think, 15K total game testers in the beta. So that's been pretty exciting. But yeah, so that's a little bit about myself in terms of the gaming side. Been a part of the Web3 space for a while now, created a couple of Twitter movements, if you will, as well, in a couple different communities where people, put the emojis in the Twitter names and things like that, have fun with it. So done that for Alluvium and over the folks over at the VeVe community as well. So a little bit about myself, and I'll go ahead and pass the mic off.
All right. Thank you, Kyle. Next, we will hit Zeno. Zeno, first off, tell us all how to pronounce your name so nobody messes it up. And then, you work for Paramount. So I wanted to ask you, I know you can't really tell us too many details about what's going on over there at Paramount. You guys are like a vault. But if you could, tell us if there's any there are any conversations you get to listen in on about their transition into Web3 and how their older community feels about that.
Yeah. So firstly, you can call me Jose. If you speak Spanish, you can call me Jose, or you can call me Xenofan. That's fine. Um, and yeah, as a gamer, I've been watching this Web3 gaming space emerge over the past like 2 years. And then as somebody who's privileged enough to work at a major company that's entering the metaverse, I get to have a lot of conversations with gaming companies to see what's possible, what's out there for us, and to see what people are thinking about. So the conversations are two-way. I get to talk about what our goals are and what we could potentially do in the future. But I also get to hear about what game manufacturers and game designers are thinking. I've been in a lot of conversations about uh, what type of games will be coming down the pipeline 6 months to a year from now, and I think it's really exciting. I think there's going to be a shift in gaming. Right now, the Web3 space has a lot of games that are play to earn, right? They're primarily crypto games to earn crypto tokens, with the gaming as like the second or third or even fourth consideration. So Axie Infinity is probably the most popular one. I've never played it, and the reason I've never played it is because every single person that ever has played it said it was a bad game. The only thing everyone ever said about it was that you can earn money, and frankly, that's not something positive, right? So you have that on one hand, and then as a gamer, I have people telling me Elden Ring is the best game ever made. So obviously, which one am I going to play? The game that is really good and widely acclaimed, or a game that is trash? So I think there's going to be a shift from that type of model into um, games where people don't even realize they're earning NFTs, or NFTs are the secondary or consideration. The primary consideration is fun. So obviously, every game designer is going to tell you my game is the best game in the world, and I'm putting fun at the forefront, right? We hear this with Superfarm and Elio, right? That's the thing he talks about the most, and obviously we have faith that he's going to do that. Um, but it's just interesting to see how game designers are going to incorporate NFTs and allow them to be earned by people who haven't set up a wallet, right? So they're lowering the barriers to entry. That's a big thing. Um, they're um, they're kind of sneaking it in there. So I think there was an article circulating today about some big company. I forget which one it was, that was like not even calling it. It might have been Nike. Not even calling it NFTs. They're calling them collectibles. So I think you're going to see a lot more of that over time.
Cool. Anything else you wanted to tell us about you?
Um, no, just that I have a lot of experience now. I'm quickly getting a lot of experience, so I get to see Web3 emerge from a very unique point of view, where everyone's coming to me, um, and it gives me a lot of experience, and it's just really exciting as a Web3 nerd. So I just feel really grateful I get to be in this position.
Awesome. Well, thank you. Last, we have Nil. Nil, you are one of the most listened to Neo Tokyo AMA hosts, and I know you've talked with, I'd say, dozens of gaming companies. So just tell us a little bit about yourself and give us your thoughts.
Hey guys, I'm Nil, and I do the AMAs primarily inside Neo Tokyo, and through the 8-ish months now that I've been talking to gaming companies, having these very in-depth talks with people that aren't really trying to hide anything, it really paints a picture that why gamers would hate NFTs is that, well, not everyone who comes through and do these AMAs is very sincere. A lot of people come from very business backgrounds, and it shows during their candor. When I'm talking to them, you can really tell that they either don't want to be there, or they just want to sell a product. And I guess I'll be the opposing force of NFTs in this conversation, just to have a bit more of a neutral stance in I guess the total amount of uh, I guess opinions, just to keep it a bit more even. But from my experience from talking to all these companies, it's going to be a large and long battle when it comes to trying to get gamers onto NFTs. And I do have some opinions on it, but if you guys have any interest in gaming companies or any type of thing that happens in Web3, we're probably going to have an AMA on it. So get yourself an S2 and hop in. Always a pleasure to talk to the citizens. That's about it.
So I think Nell brings up, before this panel, I just quickly jotted down what I thought were like bad arguments and good arguments from kind of the hate culture for NFTs. And I think Nell brings up like one of the ones that we really have to acknowledge as a community, which is like the number of bad actors or just pure greed motivated actors that are really giving the space a bad reputation. And those are often the loudest voices or the projects that are covered when someone writes a hate piece on the space. And I think as long as we kind of facilitate those projects and participate in them, to some degree, like that's going to continue to exist and give the space a bad name.
Yeah, for sure. And this Twitter space is going to be very enlightening for a lot of people because my opinions are I don't really sugarcoat them. So this will be fun. Let's get at it.
Well, Nil, before we move on, this is the Neo Tokyo News, and as the holy host of Neo Tokyo AMAs, I wanted to offer you the floor if you have any questions you want to ask or any conversations you want to start.
Sure,
it's yours.
I can open it up. All right, let's start with this topic first. Where does the hatred initially come from when gamers hear about NFTs, and why is it sustaining?
Yeah, I can try to take a stab at this. Let me pull up my notes. So I think that to just jump in here, I think that the primary reason that people hate NFTs, in particular gamers, is just firstly a fundamental misunderstanding of what NFTs are. I think people are just listening to the news, listening to their friends, as someone else mentioned, and not even really digging in what NFTs are, and most importantly, how they can benefit games. And I think in addition to that, I think Web3 gaming companies bear some responsibility. I think that when you hear about gaming companies, I won't name any names, but we all have heard of land sales going into thousands of dollars, and then the gaming companies telling us what you can do with this land in their game. When a gamer who owns no NFTs hears that, that raises red flags. Obviously, games right now are $50 or less. And like I played Elden Ring, I played 150 hours. It cost me $50. So when you hear about that, obviously, combine those two facts together, you're going to have skepticism and maybe hatred, especially considering the predatory companies that are charging you for DLCs, but you're only getting part of the game. So I think that there's good reason for people to be skeptical, but I'm hoping that as more players enter the space, that we're going to get more good actors. Right now, I would say there's probably more bad actors than there are good actors, and we all have heard of people raising money, $60 million plus, to make a video game, and then no video game ever gets made. So that certainly isn't helping the cause.
Kyle, what's your stance on this kind of stuff when it comes to all these people that probably were grifters or scammers in Web 2, and they just find Web 3 right for the picking?
Yeah, I mean, some people just smell the money and go where they smell that, right? And you mentioned that, Neil, like in your experience hosting AMAs, like it's very clear when someone is ultimately like profit motivated, and it feeds into that narrative, and like that's the main problem I honestly see right now, as far as like that cause of what's underlying the cause is basically just like the momentum of this negative narrative. So I was thinking like before I got on tonight, like I was going to offer to do a 1 ETH giveaway if someone can find like a positive article about NFTs on Kotaku, because like you just can't find it. And when you have a whole subculture or community where it's like everyone rah-rahs if you write a hate piece, and if you were to say something positive, all of your colleagues, your peers and friends would dogpile on you and laugh at you. You're really incentivized to keep just sort of toting that line. And I think, Jose was mentioning Axie earlier. I do have to, stick up for the Axie team a little bit. I work with them, and they've had their ups and downs, but I do think that they're a team whose heart is really in the right place. And just as an early innovator, have had to kind of roll with the punches and really evolve their game. But a good example of this is like, okay, Axie had the exploit of the Ronin network. That was all over all press, and everyone was laughing at Axie, laughing at how stupid these people were that bought these assets, and just decrying the death of Web3. Axie has now made all those people whole. They raised funds, they paid back everyone that lost anything, and this basically was not covered at all. I bet most people don't even know this in the mainstream press because it didn't feed into the narrative. And they're not a bank; it's not FDIC insured. They didn't have to do that. They did that because that's the right thing to do. And there's almost no coverage of that. So I think this is just a good example of, if you only hear the horrible parts and don't hear the other side of this, it's just going to feed the perception. Why would you even want to get into the space where all you hear is just people getting ripped off and rug pulls and scammers in the space and see poor quality games? You don't blame people for not wanting to get in the space.
Right. And I think it's a lot because people always look for the negative in things, right? If anything positive happens to something they already have a bias to, why would they care? Why would they report on it? And we're seeing a lot of this, as you said, with the Axie redemption and some other projects that are also redeeming themselves, but no one really talks about redemption. People want everything to go perfect, and if nothing goes perfect, then NFTs are a scam because the project founders are not infallible. What's your take on this, Kyle?
Say again on the question.
What's your take on I guess NFTs are gamers hate NFTs, but hate NFTs. NFTs are a scam. How exactly do you make it more, I guess, palatable for the average audience?
Yeah. I think somebody mentioned earlier. I mean, this is just kind of an NFT wide ordeal, right? It's like Kotaku, anything they write, bad press. It's kind of like the adoption curve with any technology that people don't really quite understand just yet. It's the kind of that big elephant in the room, and people just don't know how to address it. We've seen it with e-com, like people say it's never going to work, and then of course a year later it works, and you have companies like eBay, Amazon just massively blow up. So yeah, I mean, when in terms of NFTs, I think we're seeing the same thing here. Is the adoption curve is at first people are going to FUD it, they're going to doubt it, they're going to say why it's not going to work, and then they're going to slowly just adopt it and still doubt it, and then finally they're just going to accept it and then actually be proponents and advocates for it. So yeah, like I see platforms like Meta, Facebook, Instagram. Someone mentioned earlier the term digital collectibles, which kind of comes from basically VeVe trying to navigate away from NFTs. So if you watch that platform pretty close, they done a really great job of communicating NFTs that don't sound basically don't make them sound like NFTs. So in terms of like the gaming space, it's somewhat similar there as well. So we're noticing the adoption curve and at first they say why it's not going to work and things like that. But I think given time, it's going to be, transitioning into the doubt phase. Like, maybe it will work, but I still have some uncertainties of, the past of DLCs and these, big game studios taking advantage of us. We had, I don't know if it was Blizzard or one of the other gaming studios where they essentially, you had to basically pay for these DLCs to enjoy the game or play it. And we've seen it time and time again in the traditional gaming space. And I think when we get further away from that, we see games that are, free to play or free to try, and, a little bit easier to, get involved with. So I think a lot of those elements have to come together for gamers to get to that next phase in cycle in the adoption curve.
To your point, Kyle, like so much of this is like normalization. A thought exercise that I talked to my team about, because on my team at Uptick, a lot of them have like different levels of familiarity with Web3. So just like as a thought exercise, we're just talking to the team about like, okay, well, imagine an alternate timeline where when games started, in the initial design phases, like everything was ownable assets, and tradable, and you could trade them outside the ecosystem and bring them from one game to another. And then imagine that there was a movement that was like, hey, we've got this great new idea. Every time that you buy an item in the game, every time you buy a currency, what if you just couldn't trade it, and then it was, absolutely worth zero the moment that you bought it? That there's no chance to trade it amongst players, no chance to resell it when you're done with it, and that money all just went to us as the developer. Like, if we picture that sort of alternate timeline, people would hate this idea. Like, no one would be like, oh, that's a much better way to build games and to build gaming economies. They'd be like, you're robbing us. Like, why are you removing our ability to, trade items amongst ourselves, to sell an asset when we're done with it? Why would we ever want this model?
Right. Like it's interesting because websites that bash NFTs and blockchain, I wonder just how much either revenue or just press that they would get from all these up and coming Web3 companies and projects if they just embraced it. It actually might put them to the forefront of Web3, and I guess like the holding company of all these gaming rags that honestly, it just shows that like there's higher forces at work here, in my opinion, that are holding down the adoption of Web3. And it's a slow process, and I think, and back to the point of the gamers hitting NFTs. I think the reason why is because as kids, people were so used to being nickel and dimed by companies, as Kyle just mentioned, and when they see this new system that is sort of related to microtransactions or DLCs, that it's just another purchase they have to make on top of a game. It's like, why do I need this? Why is this a thing? The speculative alarms go off in their head, and it's really hard to combat that because they've been reinforced over these years by these large companies that anything outside of the norm that makes these companies all of this revenue is incorrect, and they should not accept it.
Do you guys want to dig a little bit into the argument where it's like, well, you could do all this stuff before, when people list like, well, it's not a big deal that you could trade items because you could do that in CS:GO, or it's not a big deal that you could, have players get, earn something because you can do that in Roblox. And when they kind of list out like, point by point, here's, a dozen value propositions of blockchain, but I can pick 12 games that have done this before, so you don't need it.
Whenever I think about that, Roblox has been incredibly successful. I have children that play it. They love the Robux. People in Fortnite love their V-Bucks. But none of those systems are interoperable. So you have all these things like that, like CS:GO, they can swap gun skins or whatever it may be. But that's in CS:GO. And yeah, Steam has a little bit of that integrated into it. But we're looking at it more from an infrastructure perspective with Web3, because what we're doing is, well, not me, I'm not doing it, but somebody, they're laying the building blocks needed for a company to say, I'm going to make a game and I want it to have these features and be able to have that widespread and available for a lot of people, on a platform that they can use and other people can build on, rather than having it in a niche space like that. In my opinion, that's how I feel about it.
Yeah, I think that there's a real challenge there, and I think that's part of the skepticism. If you talk to game developers, or if you just look at YouTube videos, I've looked at videos from game developers online responding to why NFTs won't work. Because one of the promises of NFTs are this cross game functionality, and that's really difficult, if impossible, to do. I'm not sure NFTs are really going to work quite in the way that some people think they might. So, what I'm speaking to is like if you have a sword in one game with attributes, and then some people are promising, oh, that very same sword, you earn it in one game and you can use it in another. If you know anything about game development, that's probably not going to happen. I think that we should start off smaller before we start thinking big. Like maybe cosmetically, there's things that you could use. So let's say you earn. So for example, Halo 3 in I love that game, and I spent a lot of time earning the Hayabusa set. There's a Hayabusa helmet, and I wish I could use that helmet today in Halo. And maybe if I had earned it as an NFT, then there's proof that I earned it at one point. And if Bungie was willing to remake the helmet in the new game, they could give it to me automatically because I owned it before. So it wouldn't be a one-to-one, but it'd be, I guess, proof of ownership and then recreating it. So that's one way that you could do it. But I understand people's skepticism. They're like, it's not going to work. This cross game stuff just isn't going to work. There is some companies that are starting out, like Remark, that says you can embed different types of images and stats within the NFTs. So you could have a 2D file and a 3D file in the NFT. So you could use it in a 2D game and a 3D game. But I think we've yet to see how that's going to be implemented. So it's still very much early days in terms of development.
Yeah, I'm just going to jump in for a sec. If people are raising their hands, we're going to have some time for other people to jump on, ask questions, give their points of view near the end. But we did have one other special guest who just jumped up, another citizen who's
Dr.
definitely
JPEG in the
well
house.
versed,
Game
in this
developer.
Dr.
area.
JPEG.
Game developer, the one and only Dr. JPEG. So I'd like to just get your perspective here as you're crashing our little party.
Yo, yeah, thanks for having me up, man. I appreciate this, and no, it's cool just being able to listen in. I mean, all the people up here are avid gamers, and yeah, just kind of popping in to see what was going on.
You got up here before I could shout you out, man. I really wanted to shout out Dr. JPEG's project Non-Fungible Arcade, because they did something I love, which is like actually building the game before you open up a community. I think that's something that's super important that projects start doing. Just like show people you can have fun, like show them there's a game before you try to sell them absolutely anything. And I think like that's a really important precedent to start setting.
And for anybody that doesn't know, Dr. JPEG here is the founder of Non-Fungible Arcade. He's creating a arcade space that developers can submit their games to and earn a portion of the revenue generated from that. JPEG, you want to tell us anything about yourself or your project, what you got going on before we delve back in?
Yeah, no, I appreciate that, guys. And Lead Kale is working on something called Scrapyard. It looks amazing. It gives me like just total nostalgic vibes, like Twisted Metal. And I had a cousin, Steve, and we would just I won't go down that rabbit hole. But yeah, I'm looking forward to that, man. Non-Fungible Arcade, it's a platform where we're going to be just trying to make games fun in Web3, starting with an arcade game. So it's a side scroller. And we are implementing NFTs from like other projects. So My Pet Hooligan, Imposters, Neo Tokyo, Bored Ape, Unape, Just Cubes, Averick Saga. We've got some other ones. But it's kind of like what you guys were talking about a little bit of the compatibility of I guess skins or assets more or less throughout projects. It's not in the sense of it would be able to move from the physical asset that we have will be able to move from non-fungible arcade and Citadel Slayer to Scrapyard. But I really like the idea of like the collaborative effort in this space. I think that it's needed. What's the saying? A rising tide lifts all ships. So I really think that we need to work on the education front, and it sounds like that's what you guys were covering when I popped in. So appreciate you letting me come up here and chat with you guys.
So I don't know too many details about how you guys are doing it, but is it kind of like how Jose was saying, with his Halo helmet that he had in Halo 3? If he could prove ownership of that, maybe he could get it in another game. Is that kind of how you guys are doing your collaborations with other projects? You're verifying that they have an asset, and then you're giving them an asset in return?
So I can maybe clarify here for Scrapyard, and then Jacob could chime in. So, our two main devs, I don't do any, I'm not smart enough to do any coding. Our two main devs, Radical Living and Lightning Melon, are here in the audience. So shout out to those dudes. They've been busting their ass the last 9 months to ship this game. But the concept that they came up with, I think is a really fun implementation, which is, you don't, and the cool thing is you don't need to ask permission to do this. So within Scrapyard, what we did was, it's a car battling game where you kind of build a loadout. So you pick your car, you pick your weapons, you pick your driver and passenger. They're all NFTs. And what Radical and Lightning said early on was just facilitate other communities. So if you own a Bored Ape, if you own a Doge Pound, if you own one of the PFUs in non-fungible arcade, that those would have unique abilities that even our collection wouldn't have, that we basically pay tribute to other communities and invite them in. And it's really a win-win situation because it's a way that we can offer value to these other communities without them having to do anything. And then for my background's in marketing, I love this as a marketing device because it really invites people in. It's like, hey, you already have value in our game. You can already do something super cool that no other NFTs can do because you own Doge Pound or you own a Bored Ape. So I think it's a pretty fun implementation.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think that the whole experience is you see the way that people are very loyal and excited to projects such as Bored Ape. If there's Kleenex boxes for sale with a picture of a Bored Ape on it, I'm sure that they would sell out in 5 minutes. So the idea is to build upon or piggyback off your thought is it adds that like instant. It takes like an existing audience, right, and kind of like plugs them in so they can enjoy that experience in a more authentic and genuine way that's still tied to the roots and the culture of that project that they're a part of.
I think a lot of the hatred that comes from NFTs is when it's like sometimes projects put NFTs or make a project on the blockchain that does not gain anything that's positive from doing this. They just do it because, well, why not? Or because it will make them more money. And people outside of the sphere see this as egregious and really just like, why is this happening? Why is my favorite game company implementing stuff that all of these large gaming news conglomerates are saying is a bad thing? And I think it boils down into how subtle can you do your NFTs that gamers don't realize that they're NFTs and they're just everything's behind the panels. The game runs without you even knowing it's the blockchain, and the game runs because of that. It's a better game down the line because you would own your assets through that game and any collaborative game down that kind of gaming route. And I think that's the key, is that non-crypto native gamers have to not know or not, I guess, inherently realize what is going on in front of them, to really show that, like, it's just like any other system that a large, say, Xbox would put into a normal game. But you can also make money if you sell a particularly rare NFT or an NFT of a skin that you may not like, but someone else would like, and you would actually make actual money from it. And yeah.
I think there's arguments on both sides, right? Like Bleed Kale and I were at game developer conferences here, and the very stale and unattractive pitches that we would get when we're, just trying to network with people. I can see why there's a distaste for crypto and NFTs in the gaming community, because gaming is an experience. It's a hobby. It's something that people do, to kind of take a break from the woes of life, and to really just kind of delve into this new world and this new experience that's different from everyday life. So to try and take that and monetize it in a way that's not beneficial to the community as a whole, it is very the DeFi projects are very Ponzi-nomic. If you're late to the party, you want to try and experience this because you're a gaming enthusiast, but all of a sudden you find out that it's not beneficial, it's expensive, it's not fun. That would leave a bad taste in your mouth. So it's that educational, right? It's like that educational barrier of letting people know, like, hey, owning assets is actually great. Like, this is just like what you're doing here. Like, again, first, the game has to be fun. It's kind of a prerequisite to call something a game. But it's like, hey, you can own this. Like, did you know that? Like, imagine if you had, skins from insert game title here. And, it's really starting to get it to register, right? Like a way that I like to explain it that's like super simple to understand about what we're, working on accomplishing in Non-Fungible Arcade, with play to own is like, imagine like a peer-to-peer marketplace for something like, Fortnite skins, right? So now there's like tangible value in that. Like, see Johnny Hustlepedia is in the audience. What's up, brother? But he's a streamer, right? So like he would be able to actually give away a skin on a stream. If you had a skin Non-Fungible Arcade and you want to give it away, he can do that. You can't do that right now. Like if you have a Fortnite skin, like it's tied to your account, right? So I do think we have a lot of barriers to get over because of the way that the market's been and people getting scammed out of money and all of that. But with that being said, there's a myriad of benefits. So I think that they definitely outweigh the cons.
And JPEG, you just touched on another, I think, really important point in passing that I think is good to amplify. But as you mentioned, the ability to have a marketplace in your game, and like, yeah, sure, like, CS:GO, you could trade, there's a marketplace, you can trade the skins. Roblox has a marketplace. How much dev resources did they have to put on to build that? Our team has two devs, like. JPEG, I don't know the exact size of your team, but I know it's not gigantic. But hey, surprise, we both magically have marketplaces for our games that work seamlessly. And it's just an amazing boon to indie game devs and small teams that you can have all of these features open source, that you don't have to be an EA in order to have a marketplace in your game. That it's just like, sure, use this open source tech that anyone can use, and you have all of these features. And that's what really annoys me when people say, oh, but this game had this feature and this company built this feature, so you don't need blockchain. It's like, well, yeah, all that shit costs a ton of money and a ton of resources, and we just have it to play with. And I think that's what's so exciting. Anyway, rant off.
Well, and I think too, like what Zeno/Jose was saying, is just the ability to have your assets that you've worked so hard for, you grinded for. I mean, stayed up super late nights, and you earn that skin or weapon or whatever, and years later you want to access that again. You want to wear it in the new game. And the fact that you can't do that right now is really a super painful thing for gamers. Let us not ignore that, and I think that's the big problem with traditional gaming is you don't get to, go back into you can go back to your old accounts, but you can't flex it in the new games. And I think the possibilities are endless when you're talking about utilities as well. these token or NFTs, they're non-fungible tokens. The last word being token, that unlocks, experiences, as Dr. JPEG was saying, which is super important. You can't customize those experiences as much in traditional gaming as you can in Web3. And I think that's really important because now gaming studios and companies can now see that you own these tokens and decide to airdrop you special.
Kyle's cutting out, right?
Yeah, I think so. Kyle, you with us?
Yeah, Kyle's rip.
Man, he was getting passionate too.
I mean,
he was getting into it.
I can continue from there. I mean, because I'm passionate about this as well. I think he was saying exactly what I wanted to say on this subject, which is that if you're a game developer, like let's say, because I just Elden Ring is probably my favorite game of the year. Let's say you've played all the Dark Souls in Elden Ring, and the game developer knows that you played them all because you have the NFTs to prove it. You could airdrop them something special, some sort of special skin that is like one of one. Very few people will have played all the games and finish them. I think most importantly, maybe a lot of people will start those type of games and don't finish them. You could reward people and customize these reward packages based on your experiences, and I think that's just really exciting, and I think gamers are really going to enjoy that aspect.
Could we at least quickly touch on the environmental argument, the NFTs are destroying the planet argument?
Oh God.
I
was just talking about this today.
Please.
Well, I think there's some cognitive dissonance there, if I'm being perfectly honest. I mean, I don't think we should lead with that when we're talking to people who are skeptical, but I want to at least acknowledge that the people who are really skeptical about NFTs destroying the environment are also the same kind of people who probably shop at Amazon, right? Because we are those people. People who buy collectibles, they have tons of plastic in their home. Everything they buy comes in packages. Like they're not being as environmentally friendly as maybe they think they are.
And right there, that's how I say the same thing. Sorry, not to cut in, but it's like at the end of conversations, like, do you take inventory of your socks or your shoes? Do you use the eco-friendly bamboo toilet paper like I do? Do you just like Amazon? Do you get less boxes, or are you the person that needs 3 different boxes, but you're going to complain about environmental problems with something because you heard a news article on a super biased website that wasn't a great platform as far as providing information overall to begin with. It's such a pet peeve of mine, in case you can't tell.
Clearly.
Like you can't really living completely ethically sustainable is impossible, honestly. And people can strive to do it, but regarding NFTs, when people bring up the nature argument, there is carbon neutral blockchains and then people still bite your head off on it. It's just, it really is just. I think it's a time thing. The more time people are I guess saturated to Web3 devices and companies that will gently get into blockchain stuff. We're seeing Nike, we're seeing Adidas, we're seeing a lot of big companies get into this space now. More and more as these large companies come in, that unfortunately it's a necessary evil, that it kind of soothes these people because they see that these large companies have come in. That means that it's okay to like this stuff because these people have said so, and because of that, before all GameStop recently getting their marketplace getting over 1 million volume in 12 hours, I believe. It was a big boon for Web3 gaming, because it shows that there is an audience for this stuff, and it's not just. And it makes me believe that how much of the audience really hates NFTs that are gamers? Is it really just? Is it a lot of people, or is it just really a very loud minority And I'm not sure what to believe in anymore, because at some points I believe in that a lot of, like, more than half of people who are into gaming hate NFTs, or hate this kind of stuff that has infiltrated their life. That these people just want to play games normally. They don't want to have anything extra. And you know what? I can honestly kind of relate to them, because, like, for example, World of Warcraft would just, not everything needs NFTs. Like MMORPGs, current ones, like, I know Square Enix is looking and implementing NFTs, but I don't think it would be a prudent move right now, based off on the current economic landscape we're looking at.
We got Johnny Hustlepedia, the legend, joining us. I'd love to get
Hey,
his take real soon.
what's up, Hustle?
Not much, guys. How are y'all today?
Good.
Good.
Before I'd love to get a good Johnny rant in here, but I just wanted to touch on something quickly that Nil said. Nil, you mentioned, there are more. And to be clear, I'm a vegan. I'm a mega environmentalist, but this argument to me is so ridiculous, because not only are there, like, environmentally friendly or carbon negative blockchains, there are no games built on Bitcoin, Coin, and Ethereum. Like, no serious games are built on the proof of work. Like, we do have to acknowledge, like, there's negative environmental impact from Bitcoin and Ethereum. Acknowledge that,
Yes.
and then also
Yes.
acknowledge no games are built on those. Like, you
No.
have to be a moron to build your game on those. They're not.
Yep.
They're not made for it. So anyway, rant off.
I will say that Polygon, like, it's connected to Ethereum, right? It needs Ethereum to function, as far as as far as I know, right? And that means that even though Polygon is more sustainable and better for the environment, the fact that it still runs on a proof of work chain, basically runs off the back of a proof of work chain, I will say that that's an argument in favor of the environmentalists. So
Also,
I think that's worth pointing out.
we're gonna get more people using Polygon too, because of Disney's recent partnership with them. And to be honest, I'm not sure why people use Polygon, because it's like one large game pops off on Polygon, the entire network is down for days, and, like,
let me tell you, it's coming. Everyone I speak to is building on Polygon. So
yes, but why?
Yeah, so
Breaking the network, bro.
yeah, broken networks are very bullish signs, but no, it's a sign of demand. That's actually not a bad thing if your blockchain is experiencing some difficulties. I mean, Coinbase crashed at in the beginning of time, and so, anyways, yeah, like, Polygon's great. I think they're gonna do great. They're in the Disney Accelerator program, which is to, like, help them develop into serious, unicorn status and beyond. There to obviously. Polygon's a big platform, but yeah, like you were saying earlier, there's Immutable X as well, which they're building down to layer 3 now. So now you can have a layer 3 dedicated just to your game as well. And I think Polygon, it's like as much energy as sending like 2 emails. So even then, the network, even though it's built on Ethereum, it still consumes drastically less energy. So yeah, that's all I was going to add.
It's just more. It's more a branding problem that it still is associated with ETH. It's not a meaningful impact.
Here's why, in my opinion, that people are building on Polygon right now, because Ryan Wyatt just came over. He's the new CEO of Polygon Studios. He's from YouTube Gaming. He's the guy that pulled over Dr. Disrespect from Twitch over to YouTube. No matter what happened with his ban situation, he brought over Dr. Disrespect, and Dr. Disrespect's building on Polygon as well for his NFT game. We have Meta also partnered up. Sandbox migrated all their assets over to Polygon as well. So I really think actually his influence, Ryan Wyatt, ever since he came over to the chain, they've really been getting a lot more appeal. So maybe they're making some changes on the back end. I obviously can't speak for that side. But I do think as far as influence goes amongst these projects and developers and influencers, I think that Ryan Wyatt has a lot to do with it for Polygon's sake.
That's a great point, Johnny. I mean, the more legitimate and respected people that come into the space, and the more that the cash grabbers leave, like, that's how we slowly get acceptance, right?
Right. I mean, and especially with like, I mean, you got Ryan White, you got all these large companies. I know, I think one of the large VPs for Google AdSense is making, he's going on to a project soon. It's just, I don't, at some point, it just feels like all the hate is artificial. Like I understand why this is going on, but do you think a lot of this hate is just manufactured from people that have a lot to lose if NFTs go mainstream?
So here's what's interesting, and I feel like I'm taking too much stage time, but just like a quick data point. So we run performance marketing for Axie Infinity. So we have a ton of data on the, we're ramping up for the launch of Axie Origin, and we're doing a bunch of test marketing right now. And one thing we're trying is building the same ad, and in one version of the ad, calling out that there are NFTs in the game, and then another version, same visuals in the video, but just like put another selling point. And our assumption, and the reason we said we want to do this is we're like, initially we told the team, like, guys, we need to make sure that we don't talk about NFTs a lot in the ads. We're going after mainstream players. Mainstream players obviously hate NFTs, that's all they talk about. So we start running these ads just to advertise in the broad gamer audiences, and the ads that call out NFTs convert better. Like there's what people say, and then there's what they do. And that to me was fascinating, that mentioning NFTs when advertising them to mainstream gamers actually got more interest in the product at the end of the day.
Yeah, and even for the people that do hate on it, that think NFTs are a scam, because I think that's what people hear. It's unfortunate when a big celebrity or a big company gets into it. The Ubisofts, the Chris Brown thing that just happened. I believe Chevy's also just flopped. They had like one bid on their Corvette drop or whatever. So when you look at all these fails, people just think NFTs are a scam. And that's the problem from Web 2 gamers. So if you just term it as like an in-game collectible, I think that that's a better way to appease to the player, because at the end of the day, collectibles are tradable in the real world, whether it's a trading card, baseball card, Pokemon card. Watches are collectibles at the end of the day. Like whenever you look at a Rolex, a Patek Philippe, these are all collectibles. So if we just term them as in-game collectibles, I think we could get a lot more appeal to traditional gamers.
That's my other issue, though, right? Like you talk about how gamers have issues with, or people claim they take this stance that, it's bad for the environment. Like, are they looking into, the damage that could be done by these factories that are producing, other things, that they're participating. It's just it's an irritating point, but I do agree with what Johnny is saying. We were talking to Francis from Shrapnel earlier today, and it's like, digital collectibles or, digital assets or something that is just a little less, kind of like fitting it in a box with NFTs, because there is that association. And, people are unfortunately, getting scammed out of money and having a hard time navigating the space. But as things become more user friendly, I think that coining terms like, digital collectibles and having more friendly on ramps, I think will.
Yeah, that term actually came from Reese over at the VeVe community. He actually is the comms manager over there, but they were running into the same issue, just approaching brands in the beginning. Is like, how do you approach Disney and Marvel and say you can't use non-fungible token as a term, right? And so he came up with that specific term when they were going to pitch these companies and write these Medium articles on how to help the mainstream audiences understand the everything a little bit better. So it is interesting that I think it's going to definitely go in that direction. And on the flip side, I think it's a perpetuating issue of the bad PR on gaming. I think as your guys' space earlier, I was in there just for a little bit, and somebody mentioned, they are tradable stock, on the stock market. And, there is that need to protect your traditional games and your studios. And so I think that they have connections in the space. And, if you move too quick into Web3, as we've seen with Ubisoft, it can be detrimental. And But yeah, so I think it's a perpetuating issue, and you get your audience, you write one article, then all of a sudden your audience is advocating for bad PR as well, and going to their socials and saying why NFTs are so bad, and not really understanding or being fully educated on the issue. Just they're believing what they're reading. So I think it's a little bit of it. It's just one of those perpetuating things that it's, just keeps happening. And I think it will eventually just, end. There'll be a phase and a cycle to that.
Well, real quick, one of my favorite anecdotes for exactly what we're talking about here is I'm a huge Magic the Gathering player, and for many years, like since it came out, like Magic Arena was the game that I would play every night before I got heavy into Web3. And I was watching this Magic YouTuber, and it was a whole piece about how the economy was broken. And his main talking points were, look, we don't really own these assets. We can't trade the cards when we're not using them. Like we can't sell them or cash it in for anything when we know we're not going to use it anymore and the card's unplayable. And we really don't own these assets. And this is just a horribly designed economy. And so they're basically the whole video was begging the Wizards of the Coast, the developer, to solve these problems. And I was like, cool, this is all leading up to like he's going to suggest NFTs, right, and blockchain at the end. And the very last thing, he gives this whole rant, and the very last sentences that he says in the video is, but Wizards, whatever you do, don't do NFTs. And I just I couldn't handle it. It was like, dude, you just literally described all of the features, all of the value proposition of blockchain assets, but you just don't like the term. You don't like the branding and being associated with that. So therefore you hate it. And it's just, the shit's making me crazy.
I mean, it's the most important thing with anything really, especially when we're talking about consumer products, is branding and framing, right? You have to frame it and brand it in a way that people are going to feel positive about. And I think that's going to change, once we start using different language to describe these things, because language is obviously very important. But also when we start seeing things that consumers are more interested in, when games start incorporating what I described, these NFTs that can bridge different games, when you start seeing when you start earning NFTs that can make you money, right? Play a game just like people do in Counter-Strike right now, but with NFTs, and allowing them the flexibility to sell them in different marketplaces. When people when these new games come out, when Web3 becomes real, and plus a reframing of the situation, that's when you're going to see some real excitement about NFTs, and hopefully we'll all be there to take advantage of that.
So I'm hearing here is like you're going to hear excitement about NFTs when people are tricked into getting into NFTs and they don't know they're getting NFTs.
They're going to be tricked, but they're also going to start. they're going to start realizing that their fears maybe aren't coming true, right? That it's not all microtransactions, that it's not all bullshit. So I don't think they'll be completely tricked. I think they'll be in on their jig will be up, but they'll be like, actually, this is pretty cool.
I think a decent comparison for that is like smartphones, right? You don't go up to somebody and say, "Oh, you got the new smartphone." You say you got the new iPhone, or you have an Android, or you have a BlackBerry. Once those brands emerge that recoin the term, they might not be calling them NFTs so much.
Yeah, and you reminded me of something. I'll just make a quick point. When the internet first came out, people laughed at it and they said it was stupid. And then they started using it because it was useful. So once NFTs become useful and interesting, I mean, that's going to really help a lot.
Yeah, I don't remember, or I don't know if some of you remember, but when Netflix just came out, they had you could essentially rent a movie and they would mail it to you, and it just reminds me of those times. And even Netflix, they had to adapt. They had the red box, and of course now it's streaming. But Blockbuster, they had that moment in time where they were seeing what Netflix was doing and they didn't adapt quick enough, and they tried to put out blue boxes to try to compete. But by that time, Netflix was already working on scaling up and doing other things, and of course the streaming platform. But it just reminds me of the gaming studios and them trying to pivot, some of them somewhat failing and others a little bit more successful than others in terms of trying to move their audience over. But it does make me wonder if we're going to see that those blockbuster moments, and I think we will with some of these game studios. But yeah, it just is reminiscent of those times when technology is going in a obvious direction. It's you either adapt and innovate, or I think some of these companies are, unfortunately, they're going to go out of business. But yeah, that's kind of my thoughts on that.
Well, just to
So,
complete Atomic's analogy, I think it's not even about getting to the point of like the iPhone branding. It's, I mean, what actually happens if you walk up to someone and they're holding an iPhone? You don't say anything because it's just default. It's like, well, of course they have a smartphone. Like that's what we all have. And I think that's kind of what it'll be with this technology. Like we just won't talk about it at all. We'll stop being nerds about it, and that's when it's like finally arrived.
Right. And when it comes to NFTs, I think a lot of people are waiting for is the first major AAA game that implements NFTs and doesn't hide about it, or isn't like in your face about it. Like it has NFTs, but people play the game and don't even realize it's a blockchain game. And Johnny, you recently did a partnership collaboration with one that I'm really looking forward to in the probably next year. They'll release something, and that's Shrapnel for me.
On that point, I'd love to hear other people's like, if you had to recommend one game for a skeptic today to kind of check out to change their opinion, what game would y'all recommend?
I guess that's a trick question at the same time, right? Is it has to be an active game or an upcoming game?
Something that you could kind of see proof of existence. So gameplay footage, you can show whatever exists today. And we'll try to not mention our own projects to make it fun.
I would say Scrapyard for sure. That project looks sick. I cannot wait to play Scrapyard my Citizen. It looks amazing. If you guys don't know what Scrapyard is, you got to go look it up right now. It's going to be amazing.
Game wise,
VeVe.io is a good example because they're on a blockchain. You can trade skins. You can trade all. It's really cool, and it's not complicated.
I second that one. I was literally thinking the same game, especially if you come from FPS, Halo, especially if you're like an old school Halo 1 player. EV.io is just an amazing game. Obviously, it's a browser-based game, so you're not going to have like AAA graphics, but I think you can get the idea, wrap your head around it if you're just a traditional gamer and trying to look into the space for sure.
No, Shrapnel. EV.io. I remember we did the AMA with Chris, the founder. He was awesome. He answered all our questions, and it probably had the best onboarding and the most frictionless thing ever. All you have to do is type in EV.io inside your browser, and it loads you into a lobby. Like perfect.
That's what we need.
Perfect onboarding for a non-crypto native gamer, right? Like you don't even you wouldn't even know it's a blockchain game. You literally just type it in your browser, and people would never know it has NFTs or anything to do with crypto.
So the first time I played it, I found it from a link in the Purgatory Club. I had no idea it was a crypto game for like 2 weeks.
And that's what we need.
Same. I was just in voice chat, and some guy was just playing this game, and we all asked him, what he was playing, and he just said, "Go to EV.io," and we all started playing each other, and of course we had the AMA. But yeah, it's really great experience for sure.
I guess I would. So I'm more of a Call of Duty veteran than a Halo veteran. I've played EV.io, very smooth onboarding, great game for sure. I would go with personally at the moment, especially when they get the multiplayer mode launch and we can invite friends in and you can play zombies together. Undead Blocks. So I'm a big fan of Undead Blocks personally. It feels like Call of Duty Zombies, and that's basically what the game mechanics are based on. But they just did a $20,000 tournament this last weekend for a pistol speed run, and they have a revenue-based model instead of paying out like Ponzi-nomic type of earnings to their players, like where they only build a funnel of users And if the user funnel stops filling up, they can't pay out players and the game crashes, like we've seen with a lot of these games, because it gets way too inflationary. And as we see with the US dollar, even, that's a big problem. Inflation won't sustain economy. They're doing a revenue based model, and the game's very smooth. It is not a browser based game, so you have to download it, but you can play it on both Windows and Mac. Some games you can only play on like a high gaming PC, and some aren't even Mac capable on PC. So it's good that they have both as well.
It was funny. We also had them as we did an AMA with them actually in their early, uh, really early stages, and
Oh my god, I was there for that.
yeah. I remember. You remember he was hyped up on something. He was hyped up on something, wasn't he?
It was painful.
But it's awesome to hear that Undead Blocks is making waves, regardless of how crazy the present.
I get it, bro. Like doing AMAs, sometimes you get like you get nervous, and that was at like the height of Neo Tokyo, so I totally understand. I just called Johnny after our show with Shrapnel earlier. I was like, bro, like, dude, was that all right, man? So I get it, but
Shrapnel is I mean, I would boast about Shrapnel. Like, honestly, I think those are the guys that are going to make the first major AAA game that people are going to love, and maybe even compete with Call of Duty. Who knows?
So my quick thoughts, and I'm curious to what you guys think on this, is, when Fortnite blew up, it's kind of like the Apex was when Ninja was playing with Drake. Do you think we'll have to have some kind of moment like that in Web3 for Web3 games to pop off? Or what's your thoughts on that? What kind of moment do you think?
I don't know, like, because we even had the AMA with Ice Cube and his project. Like, it pretty much flopped, and it didn't matter. Like, if he was a successful entrepreneur rapper, like a legend in the rap space, if you don't have, I guess, clout, quote unquote, in the Web3 space, then it doesn't matter.
Yeah,
it's going to take
NFTs a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah. It's going to take a gamer. It's going to take a streamer. Dr. Disrespect, once he goes on stream, plays his NFT game in front of his millions of followers, cumulative. I think he has like 4 to 5 million cumulative across Twitter and YouTube. Mm-hmm. So if he puts that game in front of enough eyes, and he said it's frictionless, it should be, there's no entry. You can have NFTs, and the NFT costs $50. They did the drop this last week. So if Dr. Disrespect, and he's like one of those guys, kind of similar like Elio, like I would bet hard on imposters personally, because he's going to put his reputation's on the line with that type of project. Same thing with Dr. Disrespect. If Dr. Disrespect is going to make an NFT game, he's putting everything into that to make sure it's going to be the best experience possible. And it is going to be free to play, which is key.
And top of the fact
totally
that,
agree, Johnny. I think I had the same thoughts, and I'm glad Dr. Dis is in the space doing the Lord's work.
Yeah, Dr. J, that guy's great.
He you know what kind of like is like a bonus for Dr. Disrespect is he used to work for Sledgehammer Games, so he kind of knows like what people want in gameplay, and plus the fact that he's pretty much synonymous with shooters nowadays. I can definitely agree on the fact that if he plays Midnight Society in front of his entire audience, it would definitely help break the kind of like hold we have right now against the non-crypto native gamers and the general consensus that NFTs are a scam.
So do you think him being a pioneer in the space, do you think once he does, make more significant moves in Web3, do you think other, big names in streaming are going to kind of follow suit?
I mean, yes, because people always want to follow the largest leader in any type of situation, regardless when it comes to streaming or gaming. If they can make more money or get more followers, then why wouldn't they try doing the same thing that the person that gets all the attention does also.
People
I
need
think
someone that
it
they
comes
respect to tell them that it's okay to like this stuff. Like.
but it comes down to how good the game is, though. I mean, I
Yeah.
agree with you, but
Yeah.
if I wouldn't, I'm just extremely skeptical. Maybe from just because I'm a gamer, and there's been so many big titles from so many big companies that have just absolutely flopped. I wouldn't necessarily. You would think that someone like Dr. Disrespect would realize that his reputation's on the line and to focus on making a good game. But I've just been disappointed too many times in my life that until I see it, I'm not going to be expecting or I'm just going to be hoping that he doesn't mess it up for the rest of us, because it's going to set gaming back if he fucks it up.
I'm not expecting it to make waves or anything like that, but I think that based off his past experience working with Sledgehammer Games, honestly really helps here, because it shows that he can pivot. He knows how to create an audience. He knows how to create the basis of a game, because he wasn't just a streamer. And I think that really helps him, especially in this space, because love it or hate it, you need large figures in any space to make waves, regardless if they're negative or positive. And we all know the saying, positive. Positive PR is bad PR is a good PR, it's time to really take the test and see if that actually is true, especially in the Web3 space.
I just think that good games speak for themselves. So, I mean,
Yeah.
obviously a big name will get more eyes, right? If I made a game and it was just as good, let's say I made the same game the Dr. Disrespect is making identically,
Yeah.
obviously him selling it is going to be a better thing. But at the end of the day, if the game is good, then the gamers are going to find out, because, there's a lot of them.
No, for sure. Because through a lot of the AMAs I do in Tokyo, I always say this line to all these large games that come through, is basically, just because you're a blockchain game does not give you the excuse to make a bad game and just say, oh, it's blockchain. And I'm tired of all these projects promising a game, and it's like they got a 17-year-old to make it in freaking Paint and on the weekend. It's well, I never said that. But it really is you create a good product, people will come. But in Dr. Disrespect's case, it's the fact that since he's such a large figure already, plus he wants to make a good product, well, that could spark the catalyst for the NFT gaming bull run. And that would bring, hopefully, non-crypto native people inside of Web3, or at least inside of his game, which would bring more eyes on the space.
Educating the audience, educating the audience, as well as he designed, he wasn't just like a lot of these blockchain projects. Let's just say, for example, when they hire advisors, it's mainly for namesake, and they don't really contribute too much. But as far as Dr. Disrespect, he wasn't just on Sledgehammer's payroll just to be a name. He was designing maps. So as you said, he was involved in the gameplay loop. He knows how to drive maps that were used in competitive play. So that's another thing that would make me I feel like it's going to be built out very well. And that's definitely one, aside from the shrapnels and the ones that are really on the horizon from the Web3 side of things, I would say that's a game that could make or break, the adoption curve time for the space. If Dr. Disrespect nails it, the adoption curve could really speed up for NFT gaming. But if it doesn't, I am of the stance as well that it could potentially halt us back a bit as well.
Yeah, I think just to add on to what Johnny just said, Dr. Dis has designed maps and competitive gameplay. I think he actually designed one for Valorant as well, if I'm not mistaken. But I do get what you're saying, Zeno, and but I also am bullish on Dr. Dis for what Johnny had mentioned as well.
For sure, you guys seem to know a lot more, so I'm not trying to knock on him. I just think I'm just skeptical of everything until I see it, especially when it comes to gaming. And I will point out that if he does well, there's still going to be some time afterwards where there's going to be a lag, because let's just say that some streamers will see his success and start working on a game, but as we all know, it takes a long time to make a game. So I think the real bull run is going to happen when there's just that combination of factors. Like, he might trigger a crypto bull run for sure. Like, just we already saw that without a good game. But the real like mass adoption is going to come when you have a Dr. Disrespect who brings attention at a time when gaming companies are all releasing dope Web3 games.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I hate to disrupt the mojo going on in here right now, but we've been at it for about an hour and a half, and I feel like some of the listeners have been holding on to their questions for a while. So I think we should let some of them ask some things.
Yeah, thanks
Cool.
for
Yeah,
that,
great point.
Atomic. I was
Yeah.
just trying to chime in there to say the same thing. I see one person already put a request up. If anybody else wants to make a comment or ask any of these panelists something on this subject, just request to speak. Oh, the person who had requested just disappeared. So anybody want to ask a question, go ahead and put your hand up or request, and I'll bring you up.
All right. Bleed Kill, when do we get to see a demo of the citizen abilities? And is it different? It's different between S1s and S2s, or it's the same?
Let's see. I don't know if I can leak that yet. Lightning Radical, you guys in the audience?
Leak it.
The tentative plan is that we're going to be doing AMAs with all the partner communities, and then unveiling those communities live gameplay during those AMAs. So hopefully Neo Tokyo is kind enough to do an AMA. Otherwise, world will never know.
Yeah, we can do an AMA. Just, hit me up.
So I'm curious, Johnny, what's your thoughts on clean UIs that we were talking about earlier, where games are, where it doesn't look like Web3 to a regular gamer. It just is clean interface. Is there a specific game title you can think of right now, or one that you're kind of looking at in terms of a clean UI like that?
So I think I've talked extensively with JPEG on this for game onboarding to make it as smooth as possible, as far as onboarding for a user to come in from Web 2 and not have to have any problems loading in. So like EV.io does a great job. And I think it's just as easy as putting an email password login on the upfront. And that's what you link into the game. I've had to do that for every Call of Duty that I've ever really played. Like, you have to create an account. And it links to all your information, for example. So having that onboarding process, and then you just go online if you want to trade your skins, your camouflages, your attachments to the guns that you earn, etc. You log in with the same password, and then you have the option to link a wallet. You link your MetaMask from there, and you just have the pure option to trade. So I think that's the best onboarding process. As far as a game that's doing it right now, I guess I just got my hands on the Guild of Guardians demo, and it was very smooth in terms of onboarding. It's obviously built by Immutable. It's backed by NRG Gaming, which is interesting to me because NRG is not really involved in too much in the Web3 space. But when you look at their onboarding, it's the same way. It's email, password. You don't even know that you're using a wallet. So I think that's the way to go for onboarding processes. And I think mobile games are also slept on. We always talk about the AAA titles that we're really looking forward to, and the web games, but mobile onboarding could bring the biggest wave of players, especially when we're talking about worldwide.
Yep.
And mobile games make up like 70% of all gaming ROI or revenue, if you will. I am curious too to get pick everybody's thoughts about this. What do you guys think about like different segments of games? Because we kind of have them, like we have like different segments to a degree, but do you think there will be more like the clean UIs and onboarding processes, but then we'll have like the degen games. Like, do you think there's going to just be a split category for gaming in Web3?
Yeah, I do think that they are separate audiences. Truly, I think that people. I guess you could. There's a lot of ways you could slice it, but I do think that it's going to be a separate audience for a while before it's like a huge merger of Web3 gaming and quote unquote traditional gaming market. Like, people are still going to play Super Smash. People are still going to play Call of Duty. People are still and when Shrapnel is going to be great, and there's going to be other games that come along and are great. But I just I think it'll be a long time before we see like a full I guess like transition, if ever, right? Because it's like what we were talking about earlier. There needs to be a use case. If you're just making it a blockchain game and there's absolutely zero reason for it, like that's a red flag. Like, what's the purpose, right?
Mm-hmm. I mean, there's got to be, someone said before, but there has to be good games before there has to be kind of genres of blockchain games, right? Because we're starving for games that are actual, legitimate games in the Web3 space right now. And I mean, there's up and coming ones. I know there's a Earth Beyond the Sun, I believe it's called. It's launching on the Fractal marketplace, which also EV.io is also on the Fractal marketplace for Solana, and the onboarding process is very easy in both those games. And I think that we got to look at a lot of stuff like that. Is remove the friction, create good games. Don't like put NFTs in people's faces, but and just do your best on trying to make the experience and and increase the relationship with non-crypto native gamers.
If you're talking about your tokenomics, you're probably already losing to some degree, like in the end game of this. Like,
Yeah,
that's what you need to sell on. If you need to sell on play to earn, you've already lost, right?
yeah. I mean, because people are getting more and more wise that play to earn is kind of a misnomer, because play to earn at some point it's not sustainable, and you'll probably get at best maybe 6 months of a runway before your game dies. And I think that's what we're going to see with a lot of these other like move to earn games like Steppen, where they don't really have a tokenomics model, and their NFTs are going to be worth nothing sooner or later.
I see we got somebody else here on stage, but yeah, I just wanted to kind of wrap that thought up is I think the actual head of gaming at Polygon, right? He said, I think they actually banned the term play to earn altogether over there. So I'm a big fan of play and own. I like that a little bit better, just because there is a little bit of stigma with play to earn these days. But yeah, anyways, I'll pass the mic off.
Bolo
just wanna
Dave,
point
the
out-
Cowboy Ape.
Around.
Hey, what's going on, y'all? How you doing?
Doing
Good,
good.
good.
How are you?
Bolo
What's up,
Dave,
Hey,
dude?
no, yeah, I just wanted to
you work
come
on
up.
Nifty League?
Yeah, I'm Bolo Dave. I'm from Nifty League. I'm our head of community. I've been really enjoying this talk. I think we all know, well, at least for me, I feel like the space is kind of resetting in a way. If you don't know about our project, we launched with our NFTs on ETH mainnet. We actually had a game working like at launch. I'm not sure who was talking about that, but it probably was like held under the radar. We're like a Smash Bros. brawler type game. We use Subgraph, to bring in our NFTs. And we already have like a second game out. But anyway, I just kind of wanted to touch on like some of these concepts. Yeah, I'm totally
Bolo
with you
Dave,
that.
can I hype you up for 1 second? Just real quick.
Sure, go ahead.
When for my games marketing company, I tried to onboard my team by giving like a big talk and presentation about Web3 games. And I picked 3 games out to kind of show like what I thought were promising and great examples. And your guys' game, Nifty League, was one of the 3 that I picked as just sort of like a early groundbreaker and just kind of like putting fun first and showing off the innovation. So if you guys don't know Nifty League, check it out for sure.
Wow, man. Yeah, thank you so much, man. That's big love. Really appreciate it. Yeah, I think that's what we've always tried to do is just be fun first. That has to be the first ingredient, right? To do any of this. But yeah, I think we've always, viewed play and earn just kind of like it's a growth tool, right? I mean, it's kind of like how you have, any exchange with a high APR and like, put your USDC here. It's the same kind of thing. It's not something that is the end all be all. And I think the space, like somehow we really like just funneled that in and that became like this terrible narrative that this was the only thing that we were trying to do. And that's not true at all. Um, I think, in order for this whole thing to work, and this is just my 2 cents, and I'm curious what you guys think. Like, I think you need to come into the game, you kind of get them in there with play and earn. They earn some tokens. They kind of can learn about the space. They get educated about the space. Then they get in our game, you can actually rent the NFT, so you can try out the character before you actually, and there's 6 tribes, so you can like try out the character, see which one kind of vibe with and feel good about, and then if you get comfortable enough, then you can actually like maybe go from there and actually buy the NFT. But so to me, like you have to have this like full circle game loop where how do you get that person that comes in like that typically just wants to earn to like want that ownership. And I think that's like the biggest, I mean, that is why we're here. Like NFTs and gaming are together because of that ownership factor. But I think I'm trying to do, and we are as like less as a team, like not trying to convince people. Um, and I think our space won't really move forward till they just kind of choose that for themselves, because that's how I, found Nifty League, like just as a consumer, like and now I work for the team. So you kind of just have to like believe in it for yourself and see, uh, why that's special. But of course, we do have an obligation as a team and as a project to make that ownership valuable. And I think those two things are just really disconnected right now, with just like making NFT games, sustainable. So for us, and I kind of skipped a part, we're actually kind of shifting from play and earn to a zero sum compete and earn model. So it's really just going to be more like wager based. Of course, it's like we're going to try and have a hybrid of working this out with like free to play and some other ways to actually like augment the player base. But I do think that even though it'll be a focused player base, like it's going to reward people that positively participate in the ecosystem. And this is something I always kind of talk about with our team and our community, that I think the projects that continue to do that will attract the right people and hopefully attract the right gamers. Um, but yeah, I guess I'm just kind of curious, like on your guys' take, like how do you how do we like as teams and projects and NFT gamers like show people that that ownership is really valuable? I think that's kind of for anyone in Web 2 that kind of don't really see the need. And I guess I want to spend less time convincing. And I'm just curious what you guys think on that.
Huge. Hey, so I'm just hopping in here just to throw in some comments. I come from the esports space. Been involved in esports for a really long time. In NFTs a while since. Talked to Dr. JPEG a bit about his project before. So I actually have a completely kind of controversial opinion regarding play to earn. I personally think play to earn is like everyone says unsustainable, but it basically is a different concept of pay to win, which most people hate. And so when you're trying to onboard gamers, it's going to basically destroy everything that they believe in, because they don't people hate pay to win. And one of the biggest examples of this is Diablo Immortal, that's most likely come out. It's not really you can't call it really it's not a crypto game, but same idea. And so just kind of, I think that the way that you're really going to get people involved is you need to pull from the Web2 audience. Like you was mentioned before, you guys were talking about how Dr. Disrespect and his game, they put their reputations on the line and everything. It's actually there's a project out there. It's not very big. I don't think they've gone public yet. I can't really say, but they are involved in on. They've been involved in onboarding a lot of top streamers right now, directly coming from the esports industry and working with talent to kind of program around build a program around the streaming communities to help content creators bridge into loyalty rewards, and they're integrating NFTs alongside of it. However, the idea of the purpose is for NFTs to be successful, especially in gaming, you need to, like everyone mentioned before, you need it to not be how would I say this? The onboarding needs, like said, onboarding needs to be frictionless. People need to know that, and don't need to know about the NFTs. However, when you want to actually, utilize them, then that's when you start accessing and onboarding them onto the NFT process. And overall,
Yeah, hello everyone. I don't know. I have my NFT for sale on OpenSea. I don't know how to sell. I've been unable to sell my NFT for the past 3 months already. Don't know. I really don't know what to do. Is there any help?
Is this a speaker just jumped on? You don't know how to work with your NFTs? Is that what you're saying?
Send me a DM.
All right.
Try turning the computer off and on if you haven't tried that yet. Sometimes that helps.
Try tagging ZSS Becker on any post.
Anyway, it sounds like Huge kind of got cut off there, huh? You lost
yeah, no,
him?
it's fine.
You said overall, and that's where we lost you.
Yeah, you got rugged.
Well,
rugged
yeah,
overall.
sorry. I'm in China, so I do have to use a VPN for all this process for this whole thing. So me getting cut off, it makes sense. But yeah, no, I know within China, even though you want to say that crypto and NFTs aren't really great here. A lot of the actual developers for a lot of the games in the NFT space are actually from Chinese developers who have hired Americans Westerners to put on the faces for their companies, because there's the whole stigma there. So they're also afraid of government pushback, whatever. And so a lot of crypto games and Web3 games they actually do come from out of China. And so I think over time, within the Web3 space, it's going to a lot of the developers are currently switching from mobile gaming and over to the Web3 space right now. So interestingly enough.
That's a big point that you just touched on there at the end, Huge, which is like, I talk about this a lot in some of my talks in the gaming industry. Like, you just look at the brain drain. You look at all of these most talented people in the people that have made like historically great games. More and more of them are going into this space, and it's just a matter of time. Like, enough of that talent goes to the sector, and like that eventually will just be where all the great games come from.
Yeah.
Right on. I have one comment here from Lenster, who's an OG citizen who hangs out and mans the voice chat, Citizen Comms, pretty often. Looked like he got rugged off the event here, but he wanted to mention that the marketplaces are also very gated. and that seems to be an issue with getting this integration. Like iPhone, it's difficult to get crypto games on. Steam also. So it makes it difficult unless people are trying to download random clients like Undead Blocks. Once that's resolved, things could get easier. He's looking at this talk about Soul Phone or Polygon Phone. I haven't really heard about that, but apparently they're talking about releasing phones that are more geared towards crypto. So because they control the marketplace on the gadgets. That was his point.
Yeah, I think
Yeah,
Solana can
I
do a lot there in Polygon in terms of gaming. When I look at in terms of crypto phones, I'm not actually too excited about that. There's a lot of people and companies that have tried to start crypto phones that have failed for the most part. But I think what Solana and Polygon have is they do have games being built and platforms and companies that are already using their blockchains and so yeah, I'm excited in terms of that. I think mobile games are going to be massive. There's the Supercells, Tencents, and many others. That they're going to definitely capture a lot of market. I think they'll Tencent's already in Web3. They're already basically investing into a lot of different ecosystems. So I am excited about those two phone companies. I haven't heard about Polygon, so that's brand new to me. So.
Yeah, that was just announced in the
Cool.
last week with Polygon. Just for a little clarity, like with Solana, they're actually manufacturing the phone. With Polygon, it's a software partnership with an Indian-based phone startup called Nothing Phone, and it's more like a soft. Yeah, they're not Polygon's not actually manufacturing. Both are interesting approaches, but two different approaches.
Right.
Polygon recently got like not acquired, but partnered with Disney. What do you guys think of that?
Oh, you mean they're the Polygon in the Disney Accelerator program?
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's, in my opinion, my take on that is Disney is doubling down on Web3, which is actually really exciting because they are obviously one of the biggest brands. They have Disney Plus. Their CEO has mentioned that they're building out their metaverse and building using Disney Plus on top of that. So for me, it's a huge double down and definitely a big nod in the Web3 space. They have many projects that they have that are also part of the accelerator program. Polygon's obviously a huge platform already, so I think Disney's going to have a little bit of extra additional hand in some of these projects coming up on the Polygon chain. So yeah, I'm super excited about the whole thing, and curious to see what they will do over the next year.
Yeah, I mean, we're talking earlier about the rebrand to digital collectibles. I mean, can you think of any company in the world that can benefit more from digital collectibles becoming mainstream than Disney? I think the upside for them is immense once this concept becomes mainstream.
Maybe Nintendo.
Yeah.
I actually think Nintendo is one of the best fits for like one of those first big traditional gaming brands to come into the space and maybe migrate something over. They've shown interest in the metaverse at the very least publicly. So we'll see if they're willing to potentially bring some classic games from the N64, Super NES, all those classic consoles. There's so many games across, my N64 when I was growing up that I would love to run back on some NFT games because then that's a lot of IP if we're talking about the entire Smash Bros. Lore and all the characters within that. I could totally see them benefiting a lot as well if they came into the space. I agree.
All right. Well, it's getting late, and we've been going for about 2 hours. So I'm gonna ask if you guys have any final thoughts, last statements, and then pass it back to Zihai.
Now, it's always fun doing these. If you guys are not aware, Johnny Hustlepedia here is dropping a project, this thing of ours, and it's going to be all things Web3 gaming. Yuge is big in esports and NFTs, so he's going to be kind of looking for a blend of that. Bleed Kale is a part of a team of an amazing game that's coming out with a game first called Scrapyard. And then Bolo, Dave, it was good to connect with you this evening. I'm looking forward to chatting a little bit about Nifty League and learning about that, and say hi. Thank you for hosting this. And then, of course, Zeno, Sushi, always a pleasure. Neil, Kyle, appreciate you guys.
JPEG, aren't you associated with the project too? I forget.
Yeah, I've never heard of it.
Non-fungible arcade. That's right. Definitely,
How could
you
we
guys
forget?
should check it out. And
The reason why it's called NFA is because it's also not financial advice.
Yeah, all I'll say is thanks for having me on. I love talking about gaming. I love talking about NFTs, and I like talking about my experience working at Paramount, because I like to shed light on what I'm hearing and what I'm seeing. Hopefully you guys like to hear it as well. And I want to give a shout out to everybody who's on stage, and I want to reiterate what Dr. JPEG said and what Bleak Hill said. Please check out this thing of ours and NF Arcade. They're both they look like great projects, and also Scrapyard. I saw a little clip of that. It looks really good, so I'm really excited for all your projects. So everyone keep an eye out.
The only thing I have to add is thank you very much for coming for these 2 hours. If you were here for the entire time, really appreciate you guys. And if you guys want to know about the inner workings of Neo Tokyo, well, S2s are for sale and S1s. And, well, we do AMAs pretty much, well, every day-ish nowadays. So you want to hear more of my raspy voice talking to these major projects that are sprouting in this scene. Yeah, maybe pick up yourself an S1 or S2. I'm out.
Yeah,
He does sound better in Discord.
No, amazing shout out to Neo Tokyo. Like my whole game team I work with are all friends that I met in that community. I've hired so many people out of that community. I've learned so much from that community, and just cannot speak highly enough for it.
Yeah, it's a great networking project, and definitely check out Neo Tokyo for sure. It's great being with everybody up here, and thank you everybody in the audience for checking it out. Like, subscribe, and turn on notifications, and I'll pass the mic off.
All right, was that everybody?
Thanks for having me, y'all. Really appreciate it. Big love.
Thanks all. This was super fun.
All right.
Thanks for.
Well, I'm still working on my closing tagline. I don't have one yet, so I'm gonna go with "That's the way the cookie crumbles" and pass it back to the host.
Nice one. All right. Well, thanks everybody for joining us. I think I learned a lot listening to you guys discuss this, and I hope we can do it again sometime soon. As I said before, it's great if people follow along here with Neo Tokyo News. We'll be dropping information as what's going on in the Citadel and throughout the crypto gaming world. We are the first and longest running news team. There's some new fakers out there, new copycats, but we're sure there'll be plenty more, because we're doing good work, and I'm sure others can as well. Look out this next weekend. If you are in the Citadel, we're going to be doing an AMA with Citizen Capital Saturday. That is at 12 noon Eastern time. A little early for me out in the islands, but should be a very interesting one. We might invite them to do a Twitter space with us as well next week. And stay tuned for that. And beyond that, I'm just going to sign off here, saying a big mahalo, aloha in the islands, and
Thank you for hosting.
rising.
Grand Rising.
Neo Tokyo. We will see you in the Citadel.
Thanks, guys. Have a